So this is Daryl. I'm with SCTC. We do a lot of help with seniors through the Senior Center and presentations such as this one. Maybe you can guess from today's the background that I have on my Zoom meeting what I'll be talking about: cord cutting, also known as streaming services. So I thought I would decorate my background with some of the favorite services we'll be highlighting today. If you have questions during the presentation, there's a small group, so just feel free to speak up and ask your question. There is no handout because everything I'll be discussing, as you will see shortly, is on our website, and that's where I'll keep information related to cord cutting and streaming services updated as much as possible. It's a very changing environment, changes frequently. So what we discussed today probably won't necessarily be true a week or two from now. There's a lot of mergers and acquisitions and streaming services dropping off and cable companies losing subscribers. It's just a very flexible and changing environment. Very confusing to navigate. That's why hopefully this session will help you understand it a little more, and you won't remember everything I say today. So again, we'll have the website as a resource. Plus, you'll be able to go back and watch a video of this session if you need to review. And it looks like Pamela was successful in joining. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. So everybody's seeing our website here. So this is our SCTC website. The short URL to get to us is longmontsctc.org. I know you see a longer URL at the top of the screen, but that's because we've implemented a shortcut URL to get to our website. So as I mentioned, this, among other topics, you'll see at the top of our website, we have several different tabs. And this is information we have probably discussed at previous sessions. And so we keep the handouts, links to other information, and so on. So over here towards the right side of the website, I've got a tab called cord cutting, which I'm going to click on. And this is where we maintain all the current information related to cord cutting that I will be discussing today. I try to keep up with various different news articles. Like I said, it's a very changing quickly environment. So there's a lot of news that comes out about different reviews and so on. So you'll find that type of information here. But I'm going to go ahead and open up the slides to our class. Streaming services and cord cutting. So what are streaming services? Well, there's companies that provide online entertainment services such as music, movies, TV shows, etc. And they deliver that content using the internet. So it requires an internet connection. And of course, we're very fortunate here in Longmont to have Nextlight, which is an excellent streaming or internet provider, high-speed internet at a reasonable cost. So it's important to understand, to subscribe and use internet streaming services, you of course have to have an internet provider, and that's an additional fee per month. So they deliver TV, mobiles they can deliver these streaming services to a TV or to a mobile device or computers, laptops. So that's one of the advantages. Someone could everybody mute? I'm getting a little background noise on the call. If everybody would mute their device. So if you like watching content on tablets or a laptop or even a smartphone, these streaming services allow you to watch that type of information on those devices. So services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Spotify, Apple Music, those are all examples, but there's hundreds of streaming services that we can subscribe to. There may even be more than hundreds at this point. Oops, go to the next slide. So what is cord cutting? Well, typically in the past, all of us has probably subscribed to cable services like Xfinity, Comcast, or satellite services such as Direct TV or Dish TV. So that's other than also receiving antenna services. Traditionally, a lot of people have watched content using cable TV type services. So cord cutting kind of implies that you're actually cutting the cord. So we don't want you to actually cut your cord, but that is where the term came from. We're disconnecting those services and transitioning to other services to receive content. So at the end of 2023, 52% of households have cut the cord. By the end of 2025, it's predicted that 72% of households will be cord cutters. And many of us, many have added streaming services to their cable TV. So perhaps you're a subscriber to Comcast or Xfinity, but you're also wanting to watch Netflix or Hulu, Paramount Plus. So a lot of people actually do both. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can cord cut. What are the alternatives if you decide to stop paying for Xfinity or DirecTV satellite or dish satellite? I'll be talking about antenna TV. There's free streaming services. You can pay for services. And to watch all of this, what devices do we need to watch this type of content? Where to find different reviews and things to consider. And then at the end, I'll summarize what I ended up selecting for my services. But that's my preference. What I suggest as being suitable to me won't necessarily be what makes sense for you. Is there a question? No. So you have to figure out why you're thinking about cutting cable TV or satellite service. Well, a lot of people do it to save money. And in the beginning of streaming services, that was really an attractive difference on the price. Unfortunately, streaming services, probably due to their popularity, have increased a lot in price. So the price difference is not the biggest factor anymore, although it still is a factor. You should be able to save money by cutting cable TV or satellite TV using other services, but it requires some thinking to navigate all the choices. Also, streaming services are more flexible in the sense you don't have a contract. So when I subscribe to something like Netflix, if I change my mind next month or I don't want to use it for 3 or 4 months, I can freeze or I can quit the subscription and I don't pay anything and I can come back to it later. And this approach allows me to rotate services. So let's say you're a sports fan and you want to watch college football during the college football season. Well, you can subscribe to services that are really good at providing that content. And then when it's summertime or spring, you can drop those services and subscribe to something else or not use streaming during that time. Or if you're going to be going on vacation for a long time. So it's a lot more flexible in the sense of being able to control your month-to-month billing charges. In order to navigate this, we're going to call streaming services have become kind of cable 2.0. So they streaming services have been more like cable in the sense of what they can deliver and the features they deliver. So you have live TV plus cable-like channels, ESPN, and those type of cable channels, the different news networks and so on. You have DVR recording capabilities on streaming services. So you don't need a physical DVR attached to your TV any longer. You use what is called a cloud-based DVR. So all of the content is kept in the so-called cloud, retrievable over the internet to your TV. And also a lot of local sports networks. So if you care to watch things like the Nuggets and the Rockies and that sort of thing locally, a lot of these services you have to be careful in selecting the services that allow you to watch that type of content. You can also do something like an antenna plus services such as Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, Paramount, and I'll be discussing these services in a little more detail as we go through the presentation. And there's a lot of free streaming services that I'll give you a clue about. And you can mix and match all of that. So it's very flexible, but and lots of options. So that's a plus, but it's also, well, it makes it a little harder to understand what's best for you and how to navigate it. Let me stop the slides for a minute. And I want to go to our website. Lots of articles there you can scan through. But first I want to talk about antenna services. So like the good old rabbit ears days when I was a kid and having to walk across the room and change the channel for my parents to the 3 or 4 choices we had, we can still use an antenna. Typically, it's not rabbit ears anymore. It can be an indoor antenna. However, in Longmont, we are far enough away from the towers on Lookout Mountain that in some places in Longmont, and it's depending on things that are in the way of the signal, like tall buildings or trees or that sort of thing, an indoor antenna doesn't work in all locations in Longmont. And you may need an attic antenna or a roof antenna to really get the best reception. In order to help you understand that, there's a website that's linked here called antennaweb.org that'll actually help you determine what type of antenna you should need based on what you want to watch. There's an app that's available on smartphones called Terk, T-E-R-K, and that app actually lets you take your smartphone in your hand and point it different directions, and it kind of gives you the best signal direction for your location towards the towers that are in off of Lookout Mountain. And those towers broadcast the local channels such as Channel 4, 7, 9, PBS, and those sort of stations. So you can receive all of that over the air, and that is all free. So that's the absolute cheapest way to watch TV content. And I should mention that the antenna brings in a lot of what they call substations or subnetworks. So if NBC, the local channel 9, may have other channels that they're broadcasting, such as old TV shows and so on. So you could actually get a lot of content absolutely free using an antenna. Any questions about antennas? Where I live, I can actually get pretty good antenna service Oh, whoops. Chris has her hand up. Chris, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering where you even purchase an antenna anymore.
Well, Target, Best Buy, but I shop a lot on Amazon. Amazon has a wide selection of antennas. So, your typical tech type stores, such as in town Best Buy and Target and Walmart, have antennas. But
And
if go ahead.
would they hook up to the I think I got a 4D, whatever it is, television. Is there a something to hook it into the back of the
Well,
TV?
every TV still has a connector for the antennas to not plug into, screw into on the back. The coax cable connector.
Coax, okay.
Now,
Thank you.
new TVs all have the tuner built in. So if you have a reasonably new TV, the tuner that picks up the stations is built into the TV. Now it's kind of interesting to set those up the first time because it involves a process on your TV called scanning. You have to use your remote control and do some things to scan for channels. And we on occasions have helped people set that type of thing up if they get stuck on that. So any of a lot of the things I'm talking about here today, we would have help available to you through the our help process to understand how to set up things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to free services, and I've just got a few listed here. There are very a lot of free streaming services now, but the two most popular probably are Pluto TV and Tubi TV. Those are services that you watch using an app on your smart television or on your device that I'll talk about later, like things like Roku or Fire Stick. So there's applications or apps that are on those that would let you watch content on the TV, such as Pluto TV and Tubi TV. But you can also watch them on a computer by using a web browser. So they have a web address, Pluto.tv, TubiTV.com. When you go to those websites, you can watch the content. I would bring those up and show you a little demo, but then I get into copyright issues, so we're not going to do that. But go back to this website of ours, and you can click on those links, and it'll bring up the service. You do not have to have an account on these, but you can set up an account without giving a credit card since they're free. And the advantage of having an account is it saves things like your favorites and what you've been watching, recommendations. So you don't need an account, but you can set up an account, and it does offer a few more advantages to setting up an account. Now, later I'll be talking about the smart devices, but I'll mention Roku. So if you have a Roku device to watch streaming content, that itself has a Roku channel. So some of the devices that you use to watch streaming content actually have their own streaming channel that they provide, and Roku is one of those. And there's just a lot of content that's available on those type of offerings. Any comments or questions on free streaming services? Then we move on to where it's going to start costing money. And these are the subscription services. The oldest, I think, and certainly the most popular is Netflix. And that's a good example of how they have kind of increased a lot in price, but they still deliver a lot of content. I mean, they have TV series shows they show, they have movies, they just have an amazing amount of content. And they're relatively reasonably priced, I think somewhere in the $20 range per month. Then there's other services such as Acorn and BritBox that are Those two are specific basically in content to British type shows, or Acorn, I guess, also has expanded to some shows from Australia and even New Zealand. So those contain a lot of the older and newer um, TV series that were available on British TV. Then you have channels or content such as Discovery Plus, Disney Plus, etc. So all of those are standalone pay per month type of services. I guess in some cases you can actually, if you really like the subscription, you can do a yearly subscription and save some money on the versus the monthly cost. Then, in addition to services that provide, I'll call it on-demand content, there are other services that provide live content or local channels. So if part of your requirements when you cut something like the cable from Xfinity, well, they bring you the local channels, channel 4, 7, 9, PBS, etc. And you still want to watch that. Well, these services up here don't provide the local channels, but if you get something like DirecTV Stream or another one called DirecTV Internet. Now later I'll talk about the interesting thing DirecTV has done there. There's YouTube TV. Now, not to be confused with basic YouTube. Basic YouTube is free and has lots of content you can watch. YouTube TV has cable-like channels. In addition, it also has your local channels. Plus, it lets you do interesting things like record content and so on. I'll be discussing that one in particular later in more detail. Hulu has at least two offerings. Basic Hulu has content on demand, not too much live content, but interestingly enough, if you watch a lot of ABC shows, the next day after it broadcasts on ABC, usually that content is available to watch on the basic Hulu. But if you want to subscribe to Hulu and get live stations, such as live broadcasts from the local channels, you can add live TV on top of Hulu, which of course increases the price. There's Paramount Plus, used to be called CBS All Access. That kind of goes with CBS content. So again, like Hulu with ABC, if you watch a lot of CBS content, it's those TV series are available the following day usually on Paramount Plus. So I'll kind of summarize this later, but what you're beginning to see is if you're very specific in building your requirements, you can get by with lower cost solutions by not subscribing to something like a YouTube TV that costs you more per month, but by combining some of these services that are a little less per month to be able to watch that same content usually later in time, if that makes sense. So on that same theme, Peacock is NBC content favorable. So Peacock lately has some new live streaming device, such as sporting events, which has kind of irritated some football fans. So I think they'll broadcast an NFL game that's only available on Peacock. Well, I'm not a Peacock subscriber. Well, they want you to be. So like the above, NBC content, TV series type content is available the following day on Peacock, but they are getting more and more live content also. Then there's Fubo, which is a sports kind of specific streaming service. Philo is an interesting one. I think it's around 25 or 30 a month now, and it offers a wide-ranging amount of cable-like content for lower cost than typical, more expensive services like YouTube TV or DirecTV Stream, but it does not carry local stations. So the caveat there is, well, how do I get my local stations? Well, if you're getting them on antenna and you don't want to worry about the DVR function, well, then a lower cost solution is to use Philo to watch a lot of traditional cable TV type content on Philo versus paying a lot more per month for something like YouTube TV or DirecTV Stream. And then there's something called Sling, which has a couple of different packages you can combine. I don't know. I evaluated Sling, and I'll mention that a lot of the ones I've evaluated, I just didn't like the way Sling does things, but that's my preference. So again, if it's something you want to look into, find out more information on Sling. Now I ran through that quickly. Any comments, questions on these type of services? There's no quiz at the end, so well, that's okay. So how do I navigate finding a streaming solution through all of these choices? Well, there's a couple of pretty good websites, suppose.tv or mybundle.tv. And let's see, I think I have those up here. So typically what you do on one of these websites is you select the different content that you want to watch, and it'll search through and get you a couple of 3 package recommendations on what you could put together to watch your content. Now that's the most important thing about these selecting streaming services that meet your needs is you have to understand what your needs are. So my wife and I, we had to sit down and say, what do you want to watch? Absolutely. What do you want to watch? Absolutely. What can we give up if we had to? And based on that list, then you take one of these websites and it helps you compare what's available to solve those requirements. Not all of them carry everything you want. Well, I'll tell you, there's one service that comes very close to containing everything. But unfortunately, if you have a lot of requirements, finding the service that meets all of your requirements, guess what? It costs a little more than some of the other choices. So it's a trade-off between, okay, is this really important to me? Or, oh, I could save this much money if I went with this other solution. So it's a cost benefit analysis that you have to do. So how do I get this content? You probably have heard the term smart TV. I don't think you can buy a so-called dumb TV anymore. And I think if you can, they actually end up costing more than a smart TV. What we mean by a smart TV is it has applications such as Netflix, Hulu, Paramount Plus, etc., actually built in to be able to watch them directly on the TV rather than having a streaming device that I'll talk about next. I don't necessarily like that approach because eventually, as your TV ages, those apps on the TV age and aren't necessarily kept up to date, or new streaming services are added that weren't available at the time you bought your smart TV. But like I said, there's not a choice usually. All the TVs you buy are going to have some apps built in. And if they meet your needs, then you're fine. So if you take a look at a smart TV and it already has Netflix, Hulu, whatever, and you go, oh, that's the ones I use, well, great. Then you don't have to look at buying another smart device listed here below. So in addition to watching content by just using the smart TV, you can also purchase a smart streaming device such as Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, or Google Chromecast. And they keep changing the name of the Google device. So it's something made by Google that allows you to purchase it, and it brings you streaming content. I have used both a Roku and a Fire Stick. I haven't used Apple TV. I've seen the Google device used. My preference, again, Daryl's preference after using these two at the top, I like the Roku device. I liked its interface better, the graphical interface. As I mentioned earlier, it has a free content station of its own, but this is just my preference. The Roku and the Fire Sticks, I think, are kind of equivalent in price. I think the lower end devices usually are in the $40 to $45 range. Plus they have higher end devices that cost more with more features. Interesting, on the Roku and the Fire Stick, there are smart TVs that have those devices built into the TV. So you can buy a Roku TV or a Fire Stick TV. Now, Fire Stick TVs are typically from Amazon. The brand of Roku TV I have is a TCL, but there's other brands that vendors of TVs that build in the device. That's an interesting advantage in a way, because then you have one remote that kind of controls both watching TV live if you happen to have an antenna, or you can use that same remote to watch your streaming device content. Same with Fire Stick. So that's kind of an advantage. Maybe over time they don't get updated as much, lending to the separate device. And typically these are separate devices that you use an HDMI port on the TV to plug in one of these type of devices. Now, the issue with that is then you're dealing with multiple remotes. You have to remember how to switch inputs on the TV. So again, it's kind of tricky for some of us how to use a lot of this stuff once you have it. But if you have some initial help and you learn the basic steps, I think you'll be just fine. Any questions about smart TVs or smart devices that can be added to the TV or built into the TV?
Daryl?
Yes.
Just a comment on your Roku versus Fire Stick. I found Fire Sticks are a little more affordable than what you mentioned. I've got them for like $30 or something. But one difference that annoyed me when I first tried to do a Roku was the link between the remote and the TV little unit that sits there is optical. You can't block the path. Whereas, so if you put a towel over your Roku, it won't receive anything. It won't know you're there. With the that irritated me at a couple of B&Bs where I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. Till I found it buried in a nice little towel box, cute little thing beside it. The Fire Stick plugs into, as you say, the HDMI on the back of the TV, and it's radio frequency, so it's not line of sight, and you don't interfere with it as much. With the Roku, when you plug it into the HDMI, there will be a second little cord that you plug into the USB to power it.
Right, and this is what I'm saying. It's all kind of based on individual preferences and choices. Of course, some of what, like you just described, you may not find out until after you purchase the device. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, thanks for the input. Any other questions or comments?
I have one. Walmart sells an ONN, I think it's ONN brand of it's like a Fire Stick. And that particular device is a total waste of money, in my opinion, because everything that you try to look at, there are no free programs of any kind on that device. Everything that you are interested in looking at is going to have a subscription associated with it. And so I would recommend that people stay away from that particular device.
Thanks for the input. I think they're trying to improve that device, but I don't know if it'll touch on all the things you mentioned. So thank you, Daryl. Any other comments about TVs or smart devices?
I have a question about the Roku. My Roku remote broke, so I ordered a new one online. I was using a separate Roku connected with an HDMI to my TV, and the remote broke. So I bought a new one online, but it would not work at all. So I sent it back, and I don't know, like there's all different kinds of Roku models, and I have a Roku 3, and I bought a Roku 3 remote, but I couldn't not get it to connect at all with my Roku. So I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Well, there is a pairing, what they call a pairing process for these. Did you go through the settings on the TV to say add a remote?
I did it several times, and it just wouldn't connect.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have an opinion on that other than that I have ordered additional remotes and I have not run into that personally being an issue. I don't know what to say other than we could take a look at that and see if we could get it to connect. Because like I said, sometimes these things are tricky.
Mm-hmm.
You could put in a help request with us and we could take a look at that if you want before you send it back.
Oh, okay. I sent it back. I had it over a year ago, but I didn't know if I could try ordering another one and maybe be more successful.
Well,
I just downloaded their app on my phone, and I use my phone for a remote now.
Right, that's a nice feature. I didn't mention that. Thank you for mentioning that. And in some cases, you can use an app on your phone to control things. I think their website, when I remember looking at it, I thought it tried to do a good job of presenting which remotes work with which models, but I might be wrong on that. Anyway, thanks for the input. I'll keep that in mind as I talk about Roku devices.
Can you tell me which device Kelly didn't like?
The ONN device, it's sold at Walmart. It's a
Okay.
It's a branded what they call Android TV device.
Okay, thank
So
you.
a lot of devices are built on different built-in operating systems, and a lot of them are built on top of the Android operating system you're familiar with on your smartphones, and you would find that Android type device on the Google devices and the ONN devices. And later I'll be talking about a DirecTV stream device that I use that's actually built on top of Android. Any other comments? Okay, at least 10 things to think about before you try stream live TV. Sports and news channels, particularly sports, are a big one on what type of sports do you have to watch. That's really going to dictate a lot of the choices. And unfortunately, if you are really into what they call regional sports, meaning it's things like the Rockies and the Avalanche, that may end up paying a little more for streaming services to be able to get that type of content. Now, interesting, this year, Channel 9, I think it is, made a deal with the Avalanche and the Nuggets, and they are actually broadcasting on Channel 20 some of those games, not all of the games, but you can actually watch some of the games for free that you used to have to pay additional to be able to watch. What channel lineup and channel packages are offered by the different streaming services? Can you customize the packages? Does every streaming TV service provide or offer a DVR? Basically, I think they do all offer a DVR, and recently most of them, I believe it's what they call unlimited. So if you're used to using cable TV or satellite TV, often there was you couldn't record several TV shows at once. You could not have more than a certain amount of content stored, etc. With what they call cloud-based DVRs, typically they are now unlimited. So I can record as many things as I want, not worry about filling up the DVR, with one catch. Typically, they remove that content after typically 9 months or a year. So you can't keep a particular show forever like you used to be able to on a traditional DVR that's attached to the TV. And some people want a particular show that they keep forever. So that can't be done typically on these cloud DVRs. What on-demand TV shows? So when you're watching streaming services, the show is either live coming to you or it's on demand. So offerings like Hulu have a huge library of on-demand TV. Others, such as YouTube TV, don't have as big as library as Hulu might have. So there's differences on how much content is available on demand. The other strange thing is it's often you can skip through commercials if you DVR something. But if it's an on-demand TV that you're watching, sometimes you can't skip through the commercials. So that varies a lot. But one of the perceived advantages of streaming is, well, you're not getting commercials because I'm paying for the streaming service. Well, that's not entirely true always. And some of them are even sneaking in short commercials on services that you're paying for, which is kind of irritating, but if you think about it in the bigger picture, it helps them keep the monthly charge for that service at a lower price because they're bringing some commercial content. This was a big requirement for us. A lot of the streaming services, most of them that I can think of, have a limit on how many streams you can have going at one time. What does that mean? Well, if I have several people in the family, several TVs, and they all want to watch something different at the same time, well, some of the services only allow 2 streams or 3 streams, or some of them have basically unlimited streams. So if that is an important factor for you to think about, how many streams can I do at the same time? You have to look at those services and say, which of those will meet my needs? You have to understand how to access the TV services app. So on a smart TV, as my example earlier, if you're buying a smart TV and it does not have the app that gives you the ability to watch that streaming station or channel, then you either have to buy another device to add that or look at a TV that has that app. Do you have enough internet speed? Yeah, here in Longmont we do, not an issue. If you're not in Longmont, you have to be careful, how fast is your internet and do I have enough? A lot of the basic providers of content offer the ability to add premium channels such as HBO, Showtime, NFL Red Zone. So you have, if that's a requirement for you to get HBO or what I would call Max, MAX now, you want to make sure that the content provider you're looking at allows you to add that as an additional choice. And if you want to review a lot of these services, most of them offer maybe a 7-day, 5-day free trial. Some of them longer. Some of them have some introductory pricing. That's the promotions that might be available. Keeping in mind that you can always disconnect these services and that's it. You pay that monthly rate and that's it. You don't continue to pay a penalty or anything, with one exception I'll talk about later. What about the channel guide? Now, one of the problems I had with convincing my spouse to go to streaming versus what we had was, well, how do I navigate what I want to watch? I want to get there quickly and I want to push a button and I want it to be there. I don't want to have to scroll forever and select and hit back arrows and all this type of thing on the remote. Well, there's ways around that, but it's one of the differences of streaming services. In my opinion, but particularly for seniors, it maybe take some time to get used to the way you find content on your service and select it and get back to what you were watching. So there are services that are better for that. There are services that are harder, easier to use. So that's the point of having a free time period to try those services to see if it's something you can navigate easily. And if you want to save money, well, how much are you really saving? You want to really think about that. That was my primary goal initially in looking at streaming services to replace what I had, but I'll tell you, it's decreased in the difference. I still save money, I think, but the bigger advantage is I have more flexibility. I can watch on multiple devices. So I found that the advantages it gave me outweighed the cost savings I thought I would be getting. Those are some just things to think about. Any questions on that list or anything to think about adding to it? Okay, I want to go back to the slides. So what have I used and how did I end up doing what I'm doing? Yeah, I used to use DirecTV satellite. I evaluated DirecTV Stream, Hulu, Fubo, you name it, and I've looked at it. So I've used Peacock, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, Acorn, Amazon Prime, Netflix. So it takes a lot of time to think about this stuff, to evaluate this. Again, I had to start with a list of my requirements, my spouse's requirements. And with all of that considered, there's several approaches you can take. If you want to keep it basic and spend no money, that is antenna TV, plus you can add free streaming services. Of course, to add free streaming services, you need internet service and you need a smart TV or a smart streaming device such as the Roku or the Fire Stick. I did not mention earlier, I think I mentioned Tubi and Pluto, but YouTube itself, the basic free YouTube, surprisingly has a lot of TV type content. Not just videos we make, but lots of other content that's available. In fact, if you start looking at YouTube videos, you can, where did the time go? Why is it an hour later? Because you kind of get into a rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos sometimes. You can keep it basic, but add some low costs. So you can start with antenna TV, free streaming, or you can add things like Netflix and the following, Paramount and Hulu and Discovery, keeping in mind that things like Paramount gives you CBS content, either live or the day after. Peacock does the NBC content. Hulu does the ABC content. So by subscribing to some of those or all of those, it's probably less money than paying for the more expensive all-inclusive streaming services that are next. So to me, there's basically two that out of what I've looked at that makes sense to the most number of people, I think. That's YouTube TV, extremely large choice of channels, local and cable type channels, and it has unlimited DVR. The downside for me was it only offers 3 streams at its basic price. I think you can add on an extra payment to get more streams, but it only has 3 simultaneous streams that it offers. Plus, it was missing, for us, a lot of the channels, in particular my spouse likes to watch. So I ended up looking at DirecTV Stream. Now, not to be confused with satellite. So DirecTV traditionally has been a satellite provider, but through their on and off again relationship with AT&T, they started a streaming service that's had several names, but it's ended up being called DirecTV Stream. So this is a streaming service, but it basically offers the same packages and channel offerings that I was used to on DirecTV satellite, and it was lower cost. Plus, it gave me the ability to watch things on my tablet, my computer, etc., that I didn't really have on the satellite offering. But in their way of confusing us, they've also now offer something called DirecTV Internet. There's stream and there's internet. Well, they're both streaming over the internet. The DirecTV Stream now does not come with the streaming device, okay, like a Roku. DirecTV Internet has its own streaming device. The biggest advantage is it has a remote control that has channel numbers and a lot more functionality like satellite DirecTV. Guess what? It has a monthly charge on those devices, and when you initially sign up, you have a 2-year contract. The DirecTV Stream, you use the interface provided by like your Roku. There's no monthly charge for devices, and you don't have a contract. Now, I was fortunate I got into using Stream before all the internet, DirecTV internet choice. So I actually bought a device from them called an Osprey. No monthly charge. I paid 1 time for it. You can still buy those devices online, but I can't guarantee how long that's true. So just be careful when you think about DirecTV streaming. Are you talking about the stream choice or the TV internet choice? So anyway, for me, that was my choice because it's the most cable-like. It has the most content. It has channels, regional sports channels, and it has, for us, a remote control with channel numbers. But it costs more than, for example, YouTube TV. So that's what I do. That's not saying what you'll do. It's all based on what your requirements are. So let me stop streaming or stop share. Okay, are you all asleep or did I keep you here? Any final questions before we wrap up? Kirk, you're muted. There you go.
No, I'm not. Just one thing you hadn't mentioned on any of your charts that I'll pitch for, because we like it. It's PBS's Passport, which is just a service, and typically you get that quote free if you give them like $96 a year for a donation, and then they give you a 1 year's access, or works out like that, or you can have a monthly $6 a month. It works like a lot like a donation, but we find that's a pretty good, very low cost way to get some streaming of particularly the PBS and slightly British shows and stuff that we love.
Thank you. That is good point. I should add that to the website. Any other questions, comments?
Daryl, this is Sarah. Did you talk about the Just Watch app and I missed it?
You know, it's on the page, and I think I skipped it. There is an app called Just Watch, as Sarah pointed out, and that helps us find where a particular show you want to watch is actually showing. So if you go to their website and you say, you know, I want to watch Bridgerton or I want to watch whatever, it'll give you the different streaming channel or services such as Netflix, Hulu, whatever it is. And I think in most cases it says whether it's free or additional charge. So that's a great resource because we'll often see a show advertised, and my wife will say, "Well, let's add that." So I said, "Well, let's see where it's going. Maybe we already have it." So typically, yeah, it's available somewhere, and often it could, if it's a newer show or movie, then sometimes it's still being a charge for it, and if it's a little older, often it's free. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, with that,